I grew up in the 1990s on a steady diet of comic books, which of course included Aliens comics and the usual stuff like Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, the X-Men, and much more. But a really big part of my comic consumption was humor magazines, namely Mad and Cracked. I loved both. Today, Cracked magazine is definitely a different entity, rebranded for the internet age, but I'll always associate it with the magazine. I was especially drawn to the movie parodies with clever jabs and a healthy dose of potty humor. No movie was safe from a Cracked spoof, not even Alien from back in 1979, which has got to be one of the earliest high-profile send-ups of the classic film. That was a bit before my time, so I never had the chance to check it out, but I recently came across an archived version online. The website monstermemories.blogspot.com has done an excellent job of preserving all kinds of articles, advertisements, and yes, parodies, so I finally had a chance to see what Cracked had to say about Alien 40 years ago. It's quite interesting and pretty funny, so today being the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, a day devoted to pranks and gags and hopefully getting some good laughs, what better time to revisit the Cracked Alien parody? So I'm going to go through it today, and I hope you enjoy this trip back to the past. It is, above all, such an interesting time capsule of when Alien was released, and I think it hones in on a lot of faults that critics and audiences had with it at the time. We hail it as a classic today, but it wasn't immune to criticism back then, and while it was a big hit movie, and obviously its legacy has endured for 4 decades now, not everyone was praising it upon release. The prominent criticism of Alien and movies similar to Alien from that era was that it was too reliant on shock horror, on blood and guts and slime to gross the audience out instead of really scaring them. An absurd criticism in hindsight, maybe, especially since Alien is fairly reserved with its gore by today's standards, but the 1970s was really this renaissance in mainstream horror, exposing audiences to content they hadn't quite seen before and maybe weren't ready for, just weren't receptive to. But I think the actual article displays this mindset a lot better than I can sum up, so let's take a look. In true Cracked fashion, the title and characters are given similar but silly revisions. The title is actually Alien, for the sake of this parody. Ripley's name is changed to Shapely. Dallas is Dulles. Kane is Crane. Lambert is Lamb Chop, and yes, she spends the whole comic sobbing. Parker is Pucker. Brett is Breck. Ash is cleverly renamed Ashes, and even the ship's computer, Mother, is now named Mommy. Oh, and there's the cat, Jones, but they just call it the cat. It begins with a Cracked writer, who I actually thought for a second was supposed to be Dan O'Bannon. It's not, but an uncanny resemblance if you ask me. He's guiding the reader through the movie and giving advice on how to watch it without being grossed out, and he'll be stepping in throughout with these tips. The narrator begins. I'd like to discuss horror with you. Not the horror of finding yourself on Route 80 with your fuel indicator pointing to E on a gasless Sunday, but the horror found in the movies. In the 20s, 30s, and 40s, monster movies provided chills and suspense, but when it came time for the monster to munch away at its victim, that was seen in the shadows and left to the imagination. Came the 1950s, and we found monsters of giant sizes attacking. Rodan, Mothra, the killer tomatoes, all mutants from excess radiation. But again, the chew-em-up scenes were low-key. And then came the 1970s, introducing The Exorcist, a new kind of horror film that left nothing to the imagination. And it made a fortune. Today, gory, bloody, horror, and monster films are all around us, and it seems that their intent is not so much to scare and entertain us as it is to show how realistically makeup men can spill blood. Well, Cracked is kind of turned off by the whole trend, and we're told numerous other moviegoers are too. But still people go, or get dragged to them, in droves. Well, if all that pushing and publicity forces you into seeing such grossities as Prophecy, Phantasm, and Nightwings, then we'd like to give you some advice. Mostly dealing with the hottest of all these blood and gutters. So come along now as we take a look at Alien and how to watch it. The flick begins calmly, safe for all to watch, and we see a towing vessel traveling through space. Ship, Pastromys, a towing ship. Crew, 7. Cargo, 20 million tons of debris, including 1,500 prints of this film. Goal, to gross out the audience and a fortune at the box office all at the same time. Much as with the beginning of the actual film, we see the crew waking up, Crane being first and Dulles to follow. Everybody up, We're almost back to Earth. Our 10-month sleep is over. Aw, come on. Just one more month. Maybe interesting to note here that in this parody, Kane, or Crane, is wearing a t-shirt as he's waking up. I suppose John Hurt's nipples were too suggestive, even for Cracked. Following the film's plot, the captain learns of the ship's diversion from its course back to Earth. Okay, Mommy, I'm up. What's happening? Morning, Sonny. You are only halfway back to Earth. Have received emergency SOS from planet. Suggest you investigate. Do not forget to bring a raincoat, and eat a good meal before you go. Do me a favor, Mom, and stop nagging me. The crew gathers for breakfast. We can see that even Jonesy needs a cup of coffee, and some very subtle clues to Ash's true identity as a robot, with his arm clicking as he eats his breakfast. The crew discusses the SOS. And Mommy said to investigate? That's right, Shapley. Hey man, Breck and I are just maintenance men. We don't have to do that kind of stuff. It's not in our contract. True, Pucker, but the order is coming from an even higher source than your contract. Who? Mommy? No, your script. They sit down on the planet and Lambchop's griping sing-along begins. I don't, sob, see why we had to take this teeny shuttle down to the boo-hoo-hoo planet. The main ship has a much smoother ride. Yeah, but it's a real gas guzzler. Get ready to land. 7, 6, 5, 4. Uh-oh, smoke! Sound the alarm. Trouble. Pucker, what happened? The Andy Cromber duck caked up, causing the Klong Dorker to inambiate. What's that mean in English? We broke down. Well, fix it. Meanwhile, 3 of us will go out and investigate the SOS. Which 3? Sob. Stop crying, Lambchop. We'll choose in the usual fair and just way, as prescribed by the company manual. The odd finger it is. You know, the funny thing is, from time to time, I do actually hear from people who wonder why Dallas chose Kane and Lambert for the away team, so here's the best explanation you're gonna get. So consider this, if nothing else found here, canon. They set out to explore. I can't see a blubber thing. The weather is horrible. Mommy was right. About what? I should have brought a raincoat. My gosh, look at that. What whimper is that? My guess is that it's either the remains of an alien ship or a Hell's Angel biker who was blown way off course. I'll investigate this closer, says Crane. At this point, the narrator steps in. Okay, folks, it's at this point we advise you to close your eyes. What do you make of it? It's as if the man exploded from the inside, as if he drank a whole case of Dr. Pepper, tried to burp, and couldn't. Yuck. So I guess just the sight of the jockey with the fossilized burst chest was considered gross, but here's the image from the actual movie, so you can decide for yourself. We cut back to Shapley and Ash's. Look, Crane has found a whole bunch of eggs, and they appear to be surrounded by something, possibly strips of bacon. Shapley, what do you make of it? Ash's. Mommy deciphered the message we picked up. It's not an SOS. It's a warning. Ooh, Crane is about to touch the egg. A warning for what? A warning to put your hands over your eyes. Once again, in some very subtle foreshadowing, we see that when Ash's moves his neck, it makes a squeak noise. Crane is then face-hugged, accompanied by the blank screen at the narrator's advisement. Ah! This thing is grabbing me, entangling me, almost hugging me. Maybe it thinks you're its mother.
Look, it thinks you're its mother.
Shapley, let us into the ship. Crane is hurt. I can't, Dulles. You know the rules. He has to be quarantined first. But he could die. Yes, but he could be contaminated, carrying a disease like space mumps, or Martian measles, or even cooties. Following the events of the film, Ash's lets them in, and Ripley confronts him. Ash's, you shouldn't have let him in. I had to. Just look at that thing on his face. God, it's worse than my sister's acne. I'm gonna try and operate to remove it. And you know what those operations usually look like, so we suggest you leave for a few minutes and go get some popcorn. So at this point in the parody, we take a detour to the concession stand. There's audience members screaming in the background and fresh popcorn for the viewer. Do you take your popcorn buttered or unbuttered? Comment below, I'd like to know. But back to the movie. And that's what was under the mess on his face. Looks like a 2.5-pound lobster. We've got to take it off and dispose of it. Dispose of it? Are you nuts? Do you know how much a good seafood shop would give us for a lobster that size? I'm going to make a cut. Ash is about to make a move with his medical instrument, but the narrator swipes in once again. Whoops, what happens on part of the screen is vital, but what happens on the other part of the screen is barfarino, so cover your eyes halfway. My gosh, look, the liquid oozing from the creature is eating right through the floor. Lord, it's worse than the chili they served for lunch yesterday. Meanwhile, Shapley is checking in with Pucker on the status of the repairs. How's the ship coming? We're just about done thanks to these newfangled instruments. 30 years ago, it would have taken months to fix this ship. It's amazing the advances science has made. Yeah, and it's amazing the little advances my people have made. You all is still the officers, and we all is still doing the dirty work. Okay, full stop. Now that's kind of a cheap shot, don't you think? It's not like Parker was going around jive talking like some 70s stereotype in the movie, so I'd attribute this more to whatever hang-ups the cracked writer had, not out of anything we actually see in the movie. And for what it's worth, I guess this Pucker character never heard of Captain Yannick of the Prometheus, so there's that. Anyway, just as in the movie, the facehugger falls off and dies. Crane seems fine, but it's worth noting here that Crack's interpretation, or their interpretation of the character's interpretation, seems to be that the dead facehugger is shedded skin, and that there's still a parasite wandering around somewhere, so maybe some accuracy points lost here. Ashes, you wanted to see all of us. Look, Crane is well again. In fact, everything is fine except for one teensy thing. I don't know where the creature is. But, good news, I found his old skin. What's so good about that? It means he's probably twice as big now. True, but you gotta admit, now he'll be twice as easy to find. And you wonder why I'm boo-hoo, constantly crying, sob. I mean, with minds like that watching out for us, who stands a chance? Well, look, the thing's probably dead. I say we finish eating and go back to sleep. Although I do wonder where it went. Me too. You hungry, Crane? Yeah, ever since I awoke, I've had this incredible urge for lobster Cantonese. It's like something inside me is giving me this craving. And folks, you know what's inside him giving him that craving. Well, it's about to, yuck, rip through his chest and make its entrance in that scene everyone is talking about. So unless you're really into open chest operations, I suggest this time you not only close your eyes, but also cover your ears as well. This is, of course, a joke, a running gag, but actually very funny when you think about how there were actually theaters that cut the chestburster scene out of the movie. For the audience's sake, of course. In the documentary The Beast Within, Tom Skerritt, Captain Dulles himself, recalls these infamous reactions. I do remember a story that Ridley told me about, meeting with some theater owners after the picture had been released, and one guy came up to him and says, "I'll tell ya, that one scene where that thing comes out of the stomach, it really messed up the bathrooms, and I take a great deal of pride in our bathrooms, but we took care of that." And Ridley says, "Well, how did you take care of that?" He says, "Oh, we just cut it out of the picture. The bathrooms were fine after that." Okay, you can open your eyes now. It returns to the events of the movie already in progress, catching Dulles mid-sentence as the search for the alien begins. So now it's time to track the creature down. We know it's constantly changing shapes, so I want Pucker, Shapley, and Breck to be on one team, and Lambchop, Ashes, and I to be another. If you find it, you're to trap it in these official catch-a-creature heavyweight baggies the company supplied us with. Got it? Good. Then get it. Pucker, the portable tracker says there's a moving object in this locker. Get the baggie ready. No need to close your eyes, folks. It's only... Then the comic cuts to Jonesy, the classic cat in the alleyway scare. The cat is screaming, "Row," and literally boo, and looking like it's possessed by Satan or something. That cat is really gonna throw the tracker off. Look, Breck, while we wait here, why don't you go inside, poke around for a minute or two, and then, if it feels right, get eaten. Sure thing, Shapley. What a wasted opportunity for him to say, right. But of course, Breck meets his fate. It changed again. Quick! Somebody get me the baggie. Ick, what a sight. Teeth, blood, a torn baggie. This is entertainment? To me, it's more like a good time to take a trip to you-know-where. The narrator must take great pride in his bathroom breaks. But back to the movie, Dulles is on his mission to track down the alien. Okay, I'm down in the air shaft with a flamethrower trying to get it. Lambchop, you track the creature. But Dulles, sob, gulp, blubber. Also, stop crying, you'll rust the mechanisms. So where is it? To your left. No, you're right. Hold it. Dulles, sob. Be careful, I found it. It's right on top of you. I know, it's eating me. Dulles, before it devours you completely, could you answer a question? Has it changed shapes again? Yes, it's awful. It looks just like Ricardo Montalban in Bermuda shorts. So, Captain Dulles is eaten by the alien, technically another inaccuracy. We, as alien aficionado intellectuals, of course know better. We know that he was taken by the alien to be cocooned, later to be found by Ripley as evidenced by the infamous deleted scene. Not that we can really blame the cracked writers, or any viewers of the original theatrical version of the film, for that matter, for believing Dulles to be killed then and there. Really the only hint to the true fate of the Nostromo's captain is Parker's "no blood, no Dallas" line. So there's really no fault in jumping to the conclusion that he was killed, and it's fair enough considering the cocoon scene wasn't officially reinserted into the film until a good 2.5 decades later. Following the course of the movie, Shapley is at her wit's end, with her suspicions of Ashes and the truth behind the SOS growing, now being able to access Mommy to get her own answers. I've had it. Time to ask Mommy what's going on. Bleep. Blip. Bleep. Aw, come on, Ma. I don't want to play Pong now. Pong was a very popular video game back in the 1970s. Ashes comes in, and he intervenes and tries to stop Ripley. So, you found out that this mission was designed to bring back an alien, that our crew was expendable, and that we actors are scheduled for a 5% pay cut because the director went over budget on the blood? You must have taken an Evelyn Wood speed reading course to come up with all that, but now I'm gonna have to kill you. Everybody under the seat, instructs our humble narrator, and we see the feet of the audience members in the theater while the sounds of Ashes being decapitated are heard. But of course, as gross as a decapitated android head may be, he conveys relevant plot information, so it is portrayed in a panel here. Shades of Lost in Space. Ashes is a robot. You've been protecting that creature all along. It's because, as a child, I never had a pet. That does it. Pucker and Lambchop, I want you to get some supplies and meet me in the space shuttle in 10 minutes. I'm blowing up the whole ship along with that creature. And Ashes, wash your face. You look disgusting. Oh, Pucker, sob, gurgle. You think we'll make it? Not if you keep crying all over the dehydrated food. It'll all be ruined. Let's see. We'll take some, sob, artichokes, turnips, a couple of Pop-Tarts. What else? Ah, the monster! Why take one on the shuttle when we've got one here? The screen goes blank during Pucker and Lambchop's death scene, naturally, and another thing worth noting is the whole joke here about Lambert taking her sweet time to select food. While not in the movie, the novelization of Alien makes a point of Lambert making careful selections with their food supply. An excerpt from Alan Dean Foster's novel describes the following. Lambert continued to sort her boxes, occasionally trading one for another. The thought of eating raw, unprocessed artificial food was daunting at best. There was no auto chef on the tiny shuttle. The raw bulk would keep them alive, but that was all. She wanted the tastiest selection possible. Probably a complete coincidence, but maybe, just maybe, the cracked writer had also read the book, and this little detail stayed with him. But I think this presents a valuable lesson to picky eaters everywhere nonetheless. It could cost you your life. We cut to Shapley, supposedly safe and sound in the shuttle. Well, the main ship's been blown up. Everything is calm and back to normal. There's nobody left here but you and me, Cat. And it. Oh no! It's extending its teeth, trying to get me. What an overbite. I'll just slip into this spacesuit and... Wait! If I can get to that little room over there, I can... So wait, I guess the joke here is that she's about to get into the spacesuit, but doesn't, sidestepping any gratuitous titillation, which may have also been a criticism at the time. Though I find it downright sinful that we're deprived of Ripley in her underwear here. Either way, Shapley is able to flush the alien out and be rid of it once and for all. It worked! It sucked him right out into space. Well, we can rest now, Cat. At least until the sequel. Very prophetic. The narrator closes things up. And there you have it. So go to this and all those other gore galore flicks if you have an inkling or get roped into it. But remember how we advise you to watch them, because if you don't, instead of leaving like him, you'll leave like him. I've never been so grossed out. Ugh, I'm reading this helpful Cracked article so it doesn't happen again. Gag. And there you have it, the Cracked Alien parody from 1979. Not bad. Plenty of silly, cheesy jokes and one-liners, but either you like that kind of humor or you don't. I kinda do. So, hopefully you found some amusement here. Regardless of the actual writing, though, you have to admit, the art is fantastic, pretty close to the movie and pretty spot-on likenesses of the cast. Though it is interesting that we never get to see Cracked's full rendition of the xenomorph, only partial glimpses of the creature, which is true enough to the movie. But obviously we do eventually get a good enough look at the alien in the actual movie, but perhaps in line with Cracked's criticisms, the alien was just too gross to gaze upon. Maybe the craziest thing about all these criticisms about Alien being this big, gross-out movie is that, as I was recently discussing in the video Parker's Fate on the Nostromo, the original intent was to be a much gorier movie than what we ultimately got. It was a conscious decision to tone down the blood and editing, and to leave the rest to the imagination. So maybe the best testament to Alien's ability to instill fear in the audience is that people would walk out of it thinking it was gorier than it actually was. Really, I can't think of a more complimentary criticism. So, Pauline Kael can suck it. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching today. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed seeing something a little bit different in tone, I guess. And if you did enjoy the video, please make sure to give it a like. Maybe the 1986 Mad magazine parody of Aliens could be worth exploring next. And to stay up to date with all future videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. A very, very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI executives, EmYarUk, and Lady Anne, part of the Patreon Hive. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.